everyone, this is Abigail with Sparkle and Shine Guidance, and today I'm talking to you about the Libra full moon and the bigger picture that's playing out here. I've tried so many times to make this like a 3 things to know, and sometimes I can do the 3 things to know about this full moon, but with this full moon and with a lot of the other lunations we've been having recently, it's impossible for me with Mercury in the 12th house in Cancer for me to give you 3 things and to make it very short and brief. So I want to talk to you about this full moon and the bigger picture in the astrology of what's playing out in the cosmos within yourself energetically to help you navigate. Now, one of the things that I want to say is this full moon comes before Easter or whatever you celebrate. If you celebrate the goddess, or if you celebrate through the church, or whatever you celebrate, this Easter is the first Sunday after the full moon, after the equinox. So it is pagan. It is ruled by the stars. And so for everyone who has an issue with astrology, who has an issue with, the equinoxes and all these things, all of the corporate and massive mainstream holidays are dictated by these things. So maybe you should consider that when you're considering celebrating these holidays. So if you want to bring that about even more, if you want to really honor this time and this holiday, it is really all about sensuality. It is all about, since it is always with the Libra full moon or close to the Libra full moon, it is about partnership and balance and where we fit together as a partnership, as the alchemy that happens when 2 come together to create and to build together and to make something bigger than just what you can make by yourself. So the house of the relationship, the children of the relationship, the building out of the community, or the empire, or the kingdom that happens when 2 come together to make something bigger. And in order to have 2 come together to make something bigger, there has to be somewhat of a surrender of the ego. There has to be a surrender of the armoring. And this is why Libra is shown in the chart, as the descendant, or the DC. It's where the sun sets on the horizon. And what we know about this point in the chart is it's where all the masks, when revealed, when shown, drop. So oftentimes it is where our projections live. And when we don't deal with our projections, we end up manifesting partnerships and friendships that make that bigger, that make that projection bigger. Anything that you're triggered by will show itself to you through your partners, through your friendships, through another. And when that deeper inner work is done to recognize the masks and the projections and the shadow, that's when we make peace with ourselves. And when we make peace with ourselves, we make peace with we make peace with the others in our life. So this Libra full moon is always a big time of year, highlighting our relations, all our relations, and what it requires within us to do our inner work to show up in that relationship bigger than ourselves, to show up in that relationship ready to build something bigger than ourselves, ready to take up more space as a unit, either through physical manifestations, either through children, either through a project, whatever that is, happens in the house of Libra. So you want to look to your own chart with this. You want to look to where 16 degrees of Libra is in your charts. And you also want to understand that regardless of what sign sets that descendant in your chart, that is the place that we're talking about. So that's where the Libra influences begin and start. So whatever that sign is also the beginning of your 7th house and your house of partnership And the seventh house, the house of partnership, regardless of what sign occupies it, is very Libra based. It's about another. It often can represent other people in your life. And so looking at where 16 degrees of wherever Libra is in your chart is going to show you where you need to come into more balance, where something's being illuminated to you around where you've kind of been too much in your own ego or too much in it for me, in it for I, and where you're being asked to see the we, where you're being asked to see the bigger picture. Aries season is all about the self and shining and the crown and really like fighting for your will to live. And at the same time, we know that if we live our life from that place all the time, it's very unsatisfying. And that really the most satisfaction in life comes from our relationships. It comes from, Maya Angelou saying that it's not what you do that's important, it's how you make people feel. I'm really butchering that, but that idea of how you make people feel, what you ignite in someone else, where you are of service to others. These are the things that stay with us. And I know from sitting with enough people as they're, phasing out of this lifetime to know that the thing that happens when we get close to the end of our time here is we review all of our relationships. We review our relationship to our children. We review our relationships to our parents, to our siblings, to our loved ones. And it's those things that we're having to hash out and seek forgiveness for and seek resolution in, so that we can go peacefully. That is the most important thing. And, one of the things that I really hold with me is that everything else is an illusion. The only thing that is real is love. And it's interesting that that is the truth, and that can be the thing that most people struggle with the most in this lifetime, because in order to acknowledge and recognize that only love is real, all of those illusions come up between us and love. And so this time, hi, if you're just joining, we're talking about the Libra full moon. If you would like me to pull you a card, just type your first name into the chat, even if your name is on your handle, so that I know you're here. And this is only if you're on the live, and I will pull cards at the end. So we're talking about this Libra full moon at 16 degrees of Libra. And so understanding where that is in your chart is where things are being illuminated, where you're being asked to create some reckoning and some balance. And with this full moon in particular, the opposite, so the sun and the moon are on opposite sides of the sky. You can see this when you watch the sunset. If you have a clear sky, you watch the sunset. When it's the full moon, you'll see the moon slowly start to rise on the opposite side of the sky, right? That's a full moon. It's the light of the sun shining onto the moon, illuminating, bringing things up, bringing things forward for us to look at and heal and reckon with. And oftentimes it has to do with what the seeds that we planted at the new moon, or the things that were just barely there at the new moon, will come into fruition or come into illumination at the full moon. With this full moon, the sun is over there, and you can see this on the night sky. You can see Jupiter after the sunset if you're lucky and you have a clear sky. So we have Jupiter over there at 20 degrees for this full moon. And the closest planet that we have to this full moon is Chiron at 15 degrees. Now, Jupiter is benefic in nature. It is jolly. It is big energy. It is expansion. It's very much the Santa Claus of the sky, bringing in gifts, bringing in knowledge, bringing in wisdom. And with the sun, our conscious awareness set to Aries, which is all about I and me, we have Jupiter expanding on our identity, expanding on our awareness of ourself. And Chiron is also there. And Chiron asks us to heal and get right with ourselves and get right with who we are now and release the past and release the old stories. So we have a lot of planets in Aries for this full moon, and we are moving into an eclipse cycle in Aries. We need this balance of the Libra energy to take us forward into this eclipse season. So it's really important to understand where both of these places are in your chart, where 16 degrees of Aries is, 16 degrees of Libra is. And to also recognize that this is the final full moon in 16 degrees. This will be the seventh full moon. The seventh full moon in 16 degrees. 16 degrees is the Tower card in Tarot. We also had a crazy conjunction yesterday at 16 degrees. We have Uranus at 16 degrees of Taurus. So we started with this huge massive eclipse in November 8th of 2022. If you can look back to that time and see where you were, what you were working with, it's going to give you a lot of information about where you're going. We're wrapping up that cycle. So we started with that 16 degree eclipse, and now we are wrapping it up at the last full moon before the new eclipse season, where we're moving into a new eclipse cycle in Aries and Libra. So I have to tell about these things because there's a bigger picture playing out than just this full moon. So this time right now might feel bigger to you than just an average full moon. And this is why. This is the time to close out the old energy so that you are ready for the solar eclipse coming in April in 29 degrees of Aries, okay? So as we're moving forward, we have a lot of different things that are on the horizon kind of coming up, but it's really important to close out the energy from November. Really review if you have your planetary planner. If you don't, they're on sale. My beautiful branch here. If you don't, they're on sale on my website, the digital version. Yeah, going back to the journaling around November is going to help you understand what you're closing out. The Tower card in Tarot is all about things shaking up, the lightning bolt coming through, sudden awarenesses, sudden shifts that rock you, that rock your world. So it's the sudden shifts and changes, but it takes us a while to process. It takes us a while to process our grief. It takes us a while to process our pain, our suffering, and that's okay. It's purposeful. You know, life is all about that spiral of things coming back into awareness. And it's really outside of a logical process of a step-by-step process, right? So allow for yourself to feel, allow for yourself to grieve. And if you're really wanting to dive into the deeper work, I'm here for it. So reach out and I would love to work with you one-on-one.